Keep an eye out for the golden star during the video. If you spot it, comment the time you saw it, and you'll get a shout out in our next video. Happy hunting! Human-animal hybrids unleashed in a futuristic metropolis. Dr. Evelyn Hart glanced at the clock on the wall of her lab. Midnight. The rest of NeoGenesis biotech labs was dark and deserted, but she thrived in these late hours when the silence allowed her to focus. Tonight, however, there was an uneasy tension in the air, a sense of impending disruption. She carefully transferred a sample of bright blue serum into a vial, her hands steady despite her racing thoughts. This serum represented years of tireless research, a breakthrough that could revolutionize genetic therapy. As she capped the vial, a loud crash echoed through the building. Her heart skipped a beat. "What was that?" she muttered, setting the vial down and straining to listen. The security system should have prevented any intrusion, yet the sounds of heavy footsteps and muffled voices grew louder. Evelyn crept toward the door, peering into the dimly lit hallway. Shadows danced on the walls, and the flickering fluorescent lights created an eerie atmosphere. She inched forward, her curiosity battling with a growing sense of dread. Suddenly, a group of masked intruders rounded the corner, armed with high-tech equipment. Evelyn's eyes widened in shock. They moved with military precision, clearly knowing what they were after. She ducked back into her lab, her mind racing. "They're after the serums," she thought. "I have to protect them." Before she could react, the intruders burst into the lab, shattering the glass door. Evelyn backed away, her hands trembling as she tried to shield the vials. One of the intruders, a tall figure with piercing eyes, stepped forward, his gaze locking onto the glowing samples. "Take everything," he commanded, his voice cold and authoritative. In the chaos that followed, the intruders began sweeping the lab, stuffing vials and equipment into their bags. Evelyn tried to resist, but she was quickly overpowered. The tall intruder grabbed a vial of the blue serum from the counter, inspecting it with a twisted smile. "Such a shame to waste this on your petty research," he sneered. As he spoke, one of the intruders accidentally knocked over a tray of vials. The glass shattered, and the contents spilled across the floor, mixing into a swirling, colorful pool. The tall intruder cursed and reached for a rag to clean it up, but it was too late. The liquid seeped into the floor's cracks, disappearing from sight. The intruders began to retreat, but not before one of them slipped on the slick floor, dropping his bag. Several vials flew out, rolling towards the lab's entrance where a group of homeless individuals, drawn by the commotion, had gathered to see what was happening. "No!" Evelyn shouted, lunging forward, but it was too late. The intruders fled, leaving chaos in their wake. The homeless individuals, unaware of the danger, picked up the vials, curious about the glowing liquid inside. One by one, they opened the vials and ingested the contents, their expressions shifting from curiosity to agony. Evelyn watched in horror as their bodies began to convulse and morph. Their limbs elongated, eyes changed shape, and skin sprouted fur, scales, and feathers. The transformation was both mesmerizing and terrifying, a grotesque ballet of science gone wrong. "Help us!" One of the newly transformed hybrids screamed, their voice a guttural mix of human and animal. Evelyn's mind raced with panic and regret. She had to do something, but what? Amidst the chaos, her thoughts flashed back to the core of her research. The serums were designed to enhance human abilities, but without proper control and understanding, the results were unpredictable, dangerous even. Now, those fears were manifesting before her eyes. The hybrids, disoriented and frightened, began to lash out. One, with the powerful legs of a kangaroo and the claws of an eagle, smashed through a window, disappearing into the night. Another, sporting a wolf's fur and fangs, growled and turned towards Evelyn, eyes filled with confusion and rage. Evelyn held up her hands in a placating gesture. "Please, I want to help you," she said, her voice trembling. "I can fix this." But the hybrid lunged at her, forcing her to dive behind a lab bench. Glass shattered around her as the creature's claws swiped through the air. She had never felt so helpless. Her life's work was spiraling out of control, and she was caught in the middle of the storm. Summoning her courage, Evelyn grabbed a nearby tranquilizer gun, a precaution she had never thought she'd need. She aimed at the rampaging hybrid, her hands shaking. With a deep breath, she squeezed the trigger. The dart found its mark, and the hybrid staggered, then collapsed, breathing heavily but no longer a threat. Evelyn exhaled a shaky sigh of relief, but there was no time to rest. She had to track down the other hybrids, find a way to reverse the transformations, and understand who was behind the break-in. As she surveyed the wreckage of her lab, a single thought crystallized in her mind. This is just the beginning. Determined, she gathered the remaining intact vials and secured them in a reinforced case. The city of NeoGenesis stretched out beyond the shattered windows, a sprawling landscape of lights and shadows. Somewhere out there, the hybrids were trying to make sense of their new realities, and Evelyn knew she had to reach them before it was too late. With a final glance at the devastation around her, she stepped into the night, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. The fight to reclaim her work and to save the hybrids from themselves had only just begun. Evelyn stumbled out of the shattered lab, her mind reeling from the night's events. The streets of NeoGenesis were bathed in the eerie glow of neon lights, casting long shadows that seemed to twist and morph, just like the hybrids now roaming the city. She needed a plan, but first she had to assess the immediate damage. As she hurried down the street, Evelyn's thoughts raced. Those poor people. What have I done? I have to fix this. She reached her modest apartment, tucked away in a quieter part of the city. Inside, it was a sanctuary of order amidst the chaos, filled with stacks of research papers, framed awards, and a few personal mementos that reminded her of better times. She dropped the case of vials on her kitchen table and sank into a chair, her mind replaying the night's events in a relentless loop. She grabbed her phone and dialed the emergency contact for NeoGenesis Labs. A groggy voice answered on the third ring. "Dr. Hart? What's happening? It's the middle of the night." "We've had a breach," Evelyn said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Someone stole the serums and there's been an incident. I need the security footage from tonight, and we need to alert the authorities." Her colleague promised to get the footage and meet her at the lab. Evelyn hung up, her thoughts turning to the hybrids. She couldn't shake the image of their transformation, their pain, and confusion. They were out there, somewhere in the city, scared and dangerous. Determined, she began to compile a list of what she knew about the serums and the possible side effects. The serums were designed to enhance human capabilities by integrating animal traits, but the transformations had been unpredictable and unstable. She needed to figure out how to reverse the process before the hybrids hurt themselves or others. Evelyn's mind wandered to Victor Kane. Could he be behind this? He had the knowledge and the motive. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden crash from the street below. She rushed to the window and saw a figure stumbling in the shadows, their movements erratic and animalistic. "That's one of them," she realized. Grabbing her coat and the tranquilizer gun, she rushed out of her apartment, her heart pounding. She had to reach the hybrid before it drew unwanted attention. The night air was cool, a stark contrast to the heat of her adrenaline-fueled panic. Evelyn approached the figure cautiously. It was a woman, or what had once been a woman. Now she had the sleek fur of a panther and eyes that glowed with a feral light. The hybrid turned, sniffing the air, and spotted Evelyn. "Stay back," Evelyn said softly, holding up her hands. "I'm here to help you." The hybrid snarled, backing away but keeping her eyes locked on Evelyn. The fear and confusion in those eyes were unmistakable. Evelyn took a step closer, her voice calm and soothing. "I know you're scared. This wasn't supposed to happen. Let me help you. I can fix this." For a moment, it seemed like the hybrid might trust her. But then, a siren wailed in the distance, and the hybrid panicked. She lunged at Evelyn, claws outstretched. Evelyn barely had time to react, raising the tranquilizer gun and firing. The dart struck the hybrid in the shoulder, and she staggered, collapsing to the ground. Evelyn knelt beside her, checking her pulse. still alive but unconscious. She had to move quickly. With great effort, she managed to haul the hybrid into her car and sped back to the lab, praying no one had seen her. Back at NeoGenesis Labs, her colleague was waiting with the security footage. He looked shocked at the sight of the unconscious hybrid. "Evelyn, what is this?" "Later," she said, dragging the hybrid into a secure room. "Help me get her on the table." Once the hybrid was safely restrained, Evelyn turned to the security footage. As she watched the masked intruders break into the lab, her suspicions about Victor grew. His distinctive posture and movements, hidden beneath the mask, were unmistakable to someone who knew him well. "Victor," she whispered, anger boiling inside her. He had done this. He had turned her life's work into a nightmare. Her colleague looked at her, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Victor Kane. He's behind this," Evelyn said, her mind already racing ahead. "We need to track down the other hybrids and find a way to reverse their transformations. And we need to stop Victor before he does any more damage." As dawn broke over NeoGenesis, Evelyn knew her battle was only beginning. She had to face Victor, save the hybrids, and reclaim her work from the clutches of chaos. With renewed determination, she set to work, knowing the future of her city and her own redemption depended on it. The sun rose over NeoGenesis, casting a pale light over the city. Dr. Evelyn Hart's determination hardened as she left the lab, her thoughts consumed by the hybrids and the man she once called a colleague, Victor Kane. His ambition had always been dangerous, but she never imagined he would go this far. Evelyn's first stop was an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was a place she and Victor had once used for experiments, a relic of their partnership. Now, it was likely where Victor was hiding. She parked her car and approached the rusted door, her heart pounding. She slipped inside, the dim light revealing old lab equipment covered in dust. As she moved deeper into the building, she heard voices. Victor's unmistakable voice echoed through the halls, calm and confident. "Stay focused," Victor said, addressing someone unseen. "We have the power to change everything." Evelyn crept closer, peering around a corner to see Victor standing in front of a group of hybrids. They were a mix of animal and human, their forms twisted and powerful. Victor's presence was commanding, his eyes gleaming with ambition. "You can be more than what you were," Victor continued. "You can be gods among men, but we must control our power." Evelyn's anger flared. She stepped into the open, her voice steady despite her fear. "Victor, this has to stop." Victor turned slowly, a smile spreading across his face. "Evelyn, I was wondering when you'd show up. Look at what you've done," she said, gesturing to the hybrids. "These people are suffering because of you. They are evolving," Victor countered, his voice smooth. "You always lacked vision, Evelyn. This is the future." The hybrids shifted uneasily, their eyes flickering between Evelyn and Victor. She could see the conflict in their expressions, torn between fear and the promise of power. "This isn't evolution," Evelyn said, taking a step forward. "It's chaos. You can't control it." Victor's smile faded. "Perhaps not, but I can control you." He snapped his fingers, and the hybrids lunged at Evelyn. She dodged the first attack, a hybrid with the speed of a cheetah and the strength of a bear. She rolled to her feet and fired the tranquilizer gun, hitting the hybrid in the leg. It stumbled but kept coming, its eyes wild with rage. Evelyn grabbed a metal rod from a nearby table, swinging it with all her might. The hybrid fell back, giving her a moment to breathe. But another hybrid, this one with the wings of a hawk and the claws of a lion, swooped down from above. Evelyn barely had time to react, raising the rod to deflect the attack. The hybrid's claws scraped across the metal, sparks flying. Evelyn pushed back, using the hybrid's momentum to throw it off balance. It crashed into a stack of crates, the impact sending with splinters into the air. Victor watched with a mixture of fascination and amusement. "You've always been resourceful, Evelyn, but you can't win this fight." Evelyn's mind raced. She needed to turn the hybrids against Victor to make them see the truth. "You don't have to do this," she shouted to them. "He's using you. You're more than just experiments." The hybrids hesitated, their movements slowing. Victor's expression darkened. "Don't listen to her. She's lying to you." But Evelyn saw a glimmer of doubt in their eyes. She pressed on, her voice urgent. "You're not monsters. You're people. And we can find a way to help you, together." A hybrid with the fierce eyes of a tiger and the horns of a ram stepped forward, its gaze fixed on Victor. "Is this true? Are we just tools to you?" Victor's composure cracked. "Of course not. But we must be strong, united." The hybrid growled, its muscles tensing. "You're lying." With a roar, it lunged at Victor. The other hybrids followed, turning their anger towards the man who had manipulated them. Victor tried to fight back, but he was overwhelmed. Evelyn watched as he was taken down, the hybrid's fury consuming him. Breathing heavily, Evelyn approached the hybrids. "We need to get out of here," she said. "There's a way to fix this, but we need to trust each other." The hybrids, exhausted and confused, nodded. Evelyn led them out of the warehouse, her mind already planning their next move. She knew this was just the beginning, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Victor's ambition had nearly destroyed them all, but in the end, it had also given them a chance to fight back. As they stepped into the sunlight, Evelyn vowed to make things right, no matter the cost. The battle for the future had only just begun, and she was ready to face it head-on. As the sun climbed higher, Evelyn led the hybrids through the maze of alleys away from the warehouse. Their expressions were a mix of relief and confusion. The transformation had left them vulnerable and unsure of their place in this new reality. She needed a safe place to regroup and start figuring out a solution. "We need to lay low for a while," Evelyn said, guiding them to an abandoned subway tunnel she remembered from her college days. The entrance was hidden behind a thicket of overgrown ivy, a perfect temporary refuge. "In here, we'll be safe for now." The hybrids followed, their animalistic features blending into the shadows. Inside, the tunnel was cool and damp, the air thick with the scent of mildew. Evelyn found a dry spot and gestured for them to sit. "Rest here," she said softly. "I need to make some calls." As the hybrids settled, Evelyn pulled out her phone and dialed her colleague at NeoGenesis Labs. "Mark, it's Evelyn. I need your help. I found some of the hybrids, but we're in hiding. Can you gather any equipment we might need and bring it to the old subway tunnel near 42nd Street? Mark hesitated before answering. "This is getting dangerous, Evelyn. Are you sure it's safe?" "No," she admitted. "But we don't have a choice." Hanging up, Evelyn turned back to the hybrids. They were watching her, their expressions a blend of human curiosity and animal wariness. "We'll figure this out," she assured them. "I promise." Hours passed, and Evelyn spent the time examining each hybrid, taking notes on their transformations. One had the keen eyesight of an eagle, another the strength of a gorilla. The combination of traits was remarkable, yet each hybrid struggled with the volatility of their new abilities. "Why us?" One hybrid, who had the fur and ears of a fox, asked. "Why did this happen?" Evelyn sighed, feeling the weight of responsibility. The serums were experimental. They were meant to enhance human capabilities, but they weren't ready. Victor's actions accelerated the process, and this is the result. The fox hybrid's eyes softened with understanding and fear. "Can you change us back?" "I'm working on it," Evelyn said, her voice steady despite her uncertainty. "But I need your help. We have to trust each other." A sudden noise from the tunnel entrance snapped everyone's attention. Mark appeared, lugging a backpack filled with equipment. "I brought what I could," he said, setting the bag down. "We need to be quick. I think we're being followed." Evelyn nodded, her mind racing. "We'll set up a makeshift lab here. Mark, help me with the equipment. The rest of you stay alert." As they worked, Evelyn's thoughts were interrupted by a low growl. One of the hybrids, a man with the features of a wolf, stood at the entrance, his body tense. "Someone's coming." Evelyn's heart pounded. "Everyone, get ready." The tunnel echoed with the sound of approaching footsteps. Evelyn gripped a makeshift weapon, a metal rod, and moved towards the entrance, her eyes narrowing as shadows flickered on the walls. 3 figures emerged, each one transformed into a grotesque blend of human and animal. They were larger, more aggressive, their eyes burning with a feral intensity. Victor's doing, no doubt. "Stand down," Evelyn commanded, her voice firm. "We don't want to fight." The lead hybrid snarled, its voice guttural. "We follow Victor. He told us to find you." "Victor is using you," Evelyn retorted. "He doesn't care about you. He only wants power." The hybrid hesitated, but the doubt was fleeting. It lunged at her, claws extended. Evelyn sidestepped the attack, swinging the rod with all her strength. The impact sent the hybrid crashing into the wall, but it quickly recovered, growling menacingly. The other 2 hybrids charged forward, and chaos erupted in the tunnel. Mark struggled with one, trying to keep it at bay with a piece of broken pipe. The hybrids Evelyn had rescued joined the fray, their loyalty clear despite their fear. Evelyn's mind raced, searching for a way to end the fight without more harm. She spotted a fire extinguisher on the wall and grabbed it, aiming the nozzle at the attacking hybrids. She squeezed the handle, and a cloud of white foam engulfed them. Disoriented, they stumbled back, giving her and the others a chance to regroup. "Get back," Evelyn shouted, her voice echoing in the confined space. "This isn't what you want," the lead hybrid roared, its eyes wild with rage and confusion. "Victor promised us power. Power that will destroy you," Evelyn countered. "Look at yourselves. Is this what you wanted?" For a moment, the hybrid paused, its eyes flickering with doubt. But the rage returned, and it lunged again. Evelyn braced herself, but before the hybrid could reach her, it was tackled by one of her allies, the fox hybrid. They rolled across the floor, snarling and clawing. Evelyn seized the moment of distraction. She moved quickly, aiming the fire extinguisher at the remaining attackers. The foam sprayed out, covering them and forcing them to retreat. In the chaos, she saw an opening. "Now!" she shouted to her group. "Run!" They bolted through the tunnel, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. Evelyn's mind raced, calculating their next move. They couldn't keep running forever. They needed a plan, and fast. As they emerged into the daylight, Evelyn led them towards a nearby construction site. It was a maze of steel beams and concrete, the perfect place to lose their pursuers. They ducked and weaved through the skeleton of the building, their footsteps blending with the noise of the city. Evelyn paused, catching her breath. "We need to find somewhere safe to regroup." The hybrids nodded, their expressions determined despite their exhaustion. Evelyn's mind raced with possibilities. Victor's reach was extensive, but there were still places they could hide, allies they could trust. "This way," she said, leading them towards a service elevator. "We'll head underground, into the old sewers. It's not ideal, but it's safe." As they descended, Evelyn's thoughts turned to the future. They had escaped for now, but the real battle was just beginning. Victor's ambition had unleashed a nightmare, but she was determined to find a way to make things right. For the hybrids, for the city, and for herself. In the dim light of the sewer, Evelyn felt a flicker of hope. They had survived another day, and with each passing moment, she grew more determined to fight back. The future of NeoGenesis depended on it. The sewers beneath NeoGenesis were a labyrinth of dark tunnels and dripping pipes, a stark contrast to the bright, bustling city above. Evelyn led the hybrids deeper into the network, her mind working overtime to figure out their next move. The air was thick and damp, carrying the faint stench of decay, but it was the safest place they could find for now. As they settled in a large, dry chamber, Evelyn turned to the hybrids. "We need to establish some ground rules," she began. "First, we stick together. Second, we stay quiet. Victor's influence reaches far, and we can't afford to be found." The hybrids nodded, their expressions weary but resolute. Evelyn could see the toll the transformations were taking on them, both physically and emotionally. She needed to give them hope, a sense of purpose. Mark and I will work on finding a cure, she continued. But I need your help. We need to gather information about Victor's operations and figure out his next move. If we can stay one step ahead, we have a chance. A hybrid with the sleek fur of a panther stepped forward. I used to work security before. All this, I can help with surveillance and keeping watch. Good, Evelyn said, appreciating the offer. What's your name? Jordan, he replied, a hint of pride in his voice despite his new form. Thank you, Jordan, Evelyn said. We'll need all the skills we can muster. Mark was already unpacking the equipment he had brought, setting up a makeshift lab in one corner of the chamber. Evelyn joined him, glancing at the hybrids as they began to settle into roles. Some organized their limited supplies, while others scouted the surrounding tunnels for potential threats or exits. As she helped Mark assemble a portable centrifuge, she couldn't help but feel a surge of determination. We're going to fix this, Mark. We have to. I know, he said, his voice steady. We'll find a way. Hours turned into days as they worked tirelessly in the damp underground. Evelyn and Mark focused on analyzing the serums and the hybrids' blood samples, trying to pinpoint the changes and find a way to reverse them. The hybrids took turns keeping watch and exploring the tunnels, bringing back useful items and information. One evening, Jordan returned from a scouting mission with a grim look on his face. We have a problem, he said, his voice low. Victor's men are searching the sewers. They're getting closer. Evelyn's heart sank. We need to move. We can't stay here any longer. They packed up quickly, each hybrid taking responsibility for their gear and supplies. Evelyn led them through the maze of tunnels, her mind racing with options. They needed a new hideout, somewhere Victor's influence didn't reach. As they emerged from the sewers into a rundown industrial district, Evelyn spotted an old factory in the distance. It looked abandoned, a perfect place to hide and regroup. She motioned for the hybrids to follow her, their footsteps echoing softly in the empty streets. The factory was a massive structure, its windows broken and walls covered in graffiti. Evelyn pushed open a rusted door, and they slipped inside, the darkness swallowing them. Let's set up here, she said, her voice echoing in the vast empty space. We'll be safe for a while. They spread out, exploring the factory's many rooms and nooks. It was dusty and decrepit, but it had potential. Mark began setting up the lab again, while the hybrids secured the perimeter and made the space livable. As night fell, Evelyn found a quiet corner to sit and think. The weight of their situation pressed down on her, but she refused to give in to despair. She looked around at the hybrids, seeing the determination in their eyes. They were counting on her. We're not just fighting for ourselves, she thought. We're fighting for the future of this city, for everyone who might be affected by Victor's ambition. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the factory. Evelyn jumped to her feet, her heart racing. She saw a shadowy figure near the entrance, a man with the features of a hawk and the stance of a soldier. Who are you? She demanded, stepping forward. The figure raised his hands in a gesture of peace. My name is Alex. I escaped from Victor's lab. I want to help. Evelyn studied him for a moment, then nodded. We could use all the help we can get. Welcome, Alex. As they settled into their new hideout, Evelyn's determination grew stronger. They were building a community, a resistance. Together, they would find a way to stop Victor and restore their lives. The fight was far from over, but with each passing day, they were getting closer to their goal. In the shadows of the abandoned factory, a new resolve took root. Evelyn knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but she also knew they had the strength to face it. They had become more than victims of a madman's ambition. They had become a force to be reckoned with. As the night deepened, Evelyn looked out over her makeshift family, feeling a sense of pride and hope. They were in this together, and together they would prevail. Evelyn woke early the next morning to the distant sounds of the city beginning its daily bustle. The factory's thick walls muffled most of the noise, but it was a reminder that life continued above while they fought their battles below. She rose quietly, careful not to disturb the hybrids still sleeping around the large space. She joined Mark at their makeshift lab. He was already immersed in his work, eyes glued to a microscope. "Anything new?" she asked, her voice a whisper. "Not yet," Mark replied, looking up, "but I've got a few leads. We're getting closer, Evelyn." "We need to speed things up," she said. "Victor's men are getting bolder. We can't stay hidden forever." Mark nodded, his expression grim. "Agreed. Let's push harder today." As the hybrids began to stir, Evelyn gathered them for a meeting. "We're making progress," she said, trying to infuse her voice with optimism. "But we need to stay vigilant. Victor's men are out there, and they won't stop until they find us." Jordan, the Panther hybrid, stepped forward. "I'll set up a watch. We need to know if they're getting close." "Good idea," Evelyn said. "We'll take turns. Let's stay ahead of them." The day passed in a blur of activity. Evelyn and Mark continued their research, while the hybrids fortified their hideout and took turns keeping watch. As night fell, an uneasy calm settled over the factory. Evelyn was reviewing notes when Alex, the hawk hybrid, approached her. "We've spotted movement," he said, his voice tense. "Victor's men are nearby." Evelyn's pulse quickened. "How many?" "At least a dozen," Alex replied. "They're moving cautiously, but they're definitely searching." "Gather everyone," she ordered. "We need to be ready." The hybrids assembled quickly, their expressions a mix of fear and determination. Evelyn addressed them, her voice steady. "We can't let them find us. If they do, we'll be forced to fight. Stay calm, stay focused, and stick to the plan." As the hybrids took their positions, the air grew thick with tension. Evelyn and Mark stayed close to the lab, ready to protect their work. The factory fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional creak of the old building settling. Then, a loud crash echoed through the factory. Evelyn's heart raced as she saw Victor's men breaking through a side door. The hybrids sprang into action, using their unique abilities to defend their territory. Jordan leaped forward, his panther reflexes making him a blur of motion. He tackled the first intruder, their bodies slamming into the concrete floor. Nearby, a hybrid with the strength of a gorilla lifted a piece of debris and hurled it at another intruder, sending him sprawling. Evelyn grabbed a metal rod and positioned herself near the lab. She saw Mark arming himself with a broken pipe, ready to defend their hard-earned progress. The battle was chaotic, the air filled with shouts and the sounds of clashing metal. One of Victor's men, a hulking figure with the features of a boar, charged at Evelyn. She braced herself, swinging the rod with all her might. The impact jarred her arms, but the intruder barely flinched. He swung back, and Evelyn dodged, narrowly avoiding the blow. Suddenly, Alex swooped down from above, his hawk wings giving him the advantage of height. He clawed at the boarman's face, forcing him to retreat. "Thanks," Evelyn panted, giving Alex a grateful nod. "Watch out," Alex shouted, pointing to another group of intruders approaching from the other side. Evelyn's mind raced. They were outnumbered, and the intruders were relentless. She saw Jordan struggling with two attackers, his strength being pushed to its limits. She needed to turn the tide of the battle, fast. "Get to higher ground," she yelled. "Use your abilities." The hybrids responded immediately. Alex took to the air, diving and attacking from above. Another hybrid, with the agility of a cat, scaled a stack of crates and began raining down objects on the intruders. Jordan, now free from his attackers, joined forces with the gorilla hybrid to form a formidable defense line. Evelyn swung her rod, catching another intruder off guard. She felt a surge of adrenaline, her senses heightened. This was no longer just about survival, it was about protecting their future. The battle raged on, the factory becoming a battleground of clashing wills and fierce determination. The hybrids fought with everything they had, their animalistic traits giving them an edge. Slowly, they began to gain the upper hand, pushing Victor's men back. Evelyn saw a chance and seized it. She moved towards the lab, intent on securing their research. Mark was already there, defending their makeshift lab from two intruders. Evelyn joined him, their combined efforts driving the attackers away. "We need to finish this," Mark said, his voice strained but resolute. "We will," Evelyn replied, her eyes blazing with determination. With renewed vigor, they fought back, their movements synchronized. The hybrids, inspired by their leaders, intensified their efforts. One by one, the intruders fell, retreating under the relentless assault. Finally, the last of Victor's men fled the factory, leaving behind a scene of chaos and destruction. Evelyn and the hybrids stood amidst the debris, their breaths coming in heavy gasps. They had won, but the cost was high. Evelyn looked around at her makeshift family, their faces a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "We did it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We protected our home." Jordan stepped forward, his panther eyes reflecting the dim light. "What's our next move?" Evelyn took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. "We regroup, we heal, and we keep fighting. We're not done yet. Victor won't stop, and neither will we." As they began to clean up and tend to their wounds, Evelyn felt a flicker of hope. They had faced the enemy and emerged victorious. It was a small victory, but it was enough to strengthen their resolve. In the heart of the abandoned factory, amidst the rubble and dust, a new determination took root. Evelyn knew their journey was far from over, but they were stronger together. They would continue to fight to reclaim their lives and to stop Victor once and for all. As the night deepened, the hybrids found solace in their unity. They were more than just experiments. They were a family, bound by their shared struggle and their collective hope for a better future. And together they would face whatever came next. The morning sun streamed through the broken windows of the factory, casting long, dusty beams across the room. Evelyn stood at a table covered with maps, notes, and makeshift plans, her mind racing with strategies. Today, they needed to move from defense to offense. As the hybrids gathered around, Evelyn took a deep breath. "We need to strike back," she said, her voice resolute. "Victor's men will keep coming unless we take the fight to them. We need to disrupt his operations and gather intel on his plans." Jordan nodded, his panther eyes glinting with determination. "I've scouted the area. There's an abandoned warehouse not far from here that Victor's men seem to be using as a base. It's heavily guarded, but if we hit it hard and fast, we might catch them off guard. We'll need to move quickly," Mark added, looking up from his equipment. "If we can get in and out before they can react, we can minimize our risks." Evelyn agreed. "We'll split into 2 teams. One team will create a diversion, drawing the guards away from the main entrance. The other team will infiltrate the warehouse and gather as much information as possible." As they finalized their plans, the hybrids prepared for the mission. Evelyn felt a mix of anxiety and determination. They were walking into danger, but they had no choice. Victor had to be stopped. The teams moved out as the sun dipped below the horizon, cloaking the city in twilight. Evelyn led the infiltration team, while Jordan and Alex took charge of the diversion team. They approached the warehouse cautiously, staying in the shadows. Jordan signaled his team, and they began their diversion. A series of loud crashes and shouts echoed through the night, drawing the guards' attention. Evelyn watched as several guards hurried towards the noise, leaving their posts unguarded. "Now," she whispered to her team. They slipped through the darkness towards the warehouse entrance. Evelyn picked the lock swiftly, and they crept inside, their footsteps silent on the concrete floor. The interior of the warehouse was a maze of crates and machinery. They moved quickly, sticking to the shadows. Evelyn's heart pounded as they approached a central office, its windows glowing with light. Mark, who had been studying the layout, pointed towards a side door. "That's our best entry point," he said quietly. Evelyn nodded and led the way. They slipped into the office, finding it filled with papers, maps, and electronic equipment. Mark immediately set to work, downloading files and copying documents. Evelyn rifled through the papers, searching for anything that could give them an edge. Suddenly, a voice outside the door froze them in place. "Check the office. Make sure it's secure." Evelyn motioned for silence. They hid behind crates and machinery as the door swung open. 2 guards entered, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Evelyn held her breath, her muscles tense. 1 guard walked past her hiding spot, his light sweeping across the floor. Just as he was about to turn, Mark tossed a small pebble across the room. The noise drew the guards' attention, and they moved away, allowing Evelyn to slip behind them. With precise movements, she disarmed the first guard, a swift chop to his neck sending him crumpling to the ground. The second guard turned, but Evelyn was faster, her years of training kicking in. She knocked him out with a well-placed blow. "We need to hurry," she whispered, helping Mark finish the download. They gathered the documents and slipped back into the main warehouse. Just as they were about to exit, a loud alarm blared through the building. "We've been spotted," Mark said urgently. "Move," Evelyn shouted. They dashed towards the exit, dodging crates and machinery. Behind them, guards shouted and fired their weapons, bullets ricocheting off the metal walls. Jordan's diversion team joined them, having drawn most of the guards away. Together, they fought their way through the warehouse, their animalistic abilities giving them an edge. Jordan's panther reflexes allowed him to dodge bullets, while Alex's hawk wings gave him the advantage of height, swooping down on guards from above. Evelyn swung her metal rod, striking a guard's weapon from his hands. Mark used his agility to outmaneuver another, disarming him with a swift kick. They moved as a unit, their teamwork honed by their shared struggle. As they reached the exit, a hulking figure blocked their path. It was Victor, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You think you can stop me?" he sneered. "You're nothing but failed experiments." Evelyn stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. "We're more than that, Victor. We're a family, and we're fighting for our future." Victor lunged at her, his movements fast and brutal. Evelyn dodged his attacks, her mind racing for a strategy. She noticed a stack of crates teetering precariously above them. "Jordan, the crates!" she shouted. Jordan leaped into action, his panther strength allowing him to push the crates over. They crashed down, forcing Victor to jump back. Seizing the opportunity, Evelyn swung her rod, catching Victor off guard and knocking him to the ground. "Go!" she ordered her team. They sprinted past Victor, making their escape into the night. The warehouse echoed with alarms and shouts, but they didn't stop until they were far away. Breathing heavily, they regrouped in a safe location. Evelyn looked at her team, their faces marked with exhaustion but also triumph. They had struck back, and they had gathered valuable information. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with pride. "We hit them hard, and we've got the intel we need. This is just the beginning. We're going to stop Victor, and we're going to reclaim our lives." The hybrids nodded, their resolve strengthened. They had faced danger and emerged victorious. As they began to plan their next move, Evelyn felt a sense of hope. Together, they would overcome any obstacle and build a future free from Victor's tyranny. The following morning, the tension in the air was palpable. Evelyn and her team huddled around the table covered with the intel they had gathered. Maps, files, and electronic data hinted at the extent of Victor's operations. They now had a clear picture of his plans and a crucial piece of information: Victor's main laboratory, where he was developing a more potent version of the serum. Evelyn tapped a spot on the map. "This is our target. If we can destroy the lab and the serums, we can cripple Victor's plans." Mark adjusted his glasses, studying the layout. "It's heavily fortified. We'll need a solid strategy to get in and out." Jordan, ever the strategist, suggested, "We split into 3 teams. One creates a distraction, another infiltrates the lab to plant explosives, and the third covers the escape route." Evelyn nodded, appreciating the thoroughness of the plan. "Let's prepare. We move at dusk." As the sun set, the hybrids and Evelyn geared up, their determination evident. They moved silently through the city, blending into the shadows as they approached Victor's laboratory. The building loomed ominously, its high walls and security measures a testament to Victor's paranoia. Jordan led the distraction team, setting off small explosives at key points around the perimeter. The blasts echoed through the night, drawing guards away from the main entrance. Evelyn's team moved swiftly, taking advantage of the chaos. They slipped through the gates, their movements synchronized. Mark led them to a side entrance he had identified earlier. Inside, the lab was a maze of high-tech equipment and glass chambers filled with bubbling liquids. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "We need to find the central lab," Evelyn whispered, guiding her team through the corridors. They encountered a few guards, but the element of surprise worked in their favor. Evelyn dispatched them with swift precision, her years of training evident in every movement. Mark placed the explosives strategically, ensuring maximum impact. As they reached the central lab, they were met with a formidable sight. Large vats filled with the glowing serum lined the walls, and in the center stood Victor, surrounded by his most loyal hybrids. "Welcome, Evelyn," Victor said, his voice dripping with contempt. "I've been expecting you." Evelyn stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "This ends now, Victor. You've caused enough harm." Victor laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You're too late. My new serum is almost ready. With it, I'll create an army of hybrids loyal only to me." The loyal hybrids moved to attack, but Evelyn's team was ready. Jordan leaped forward, his panther reflexes a blur of motion as he engaged the first hybrid. Alex took to the air, his hawk wings allowing him to swoop down and disarm another. Evelyn focused on Victor, knowing she had to take him down to end this. She moved quickly, dodging his attacks and striking back with calculated precision. Victor was strong, his hybrid enhancements giving him an edge, but Evelyn's determination fueled her. The room erupted into chaos. Explosions from Mark's devices rocked the building, sending shards of glass and metal flying. The hybrids fought fiercely, their animalistic abilities turning the lab into a battleground. Evelyn managed to land a blow on Victor, knocking him back into one of the vats. The serum spilled out, its glow casting an eerie light on the scene. Victor scrambled to his feet, his eyes wild with fury. "You think you've won?" he snarled. "This is only the beginning." Evelyn saw her chance. She grabbed a nearby pipe and swung it with all her strength, hitting Victor squarely in the chest. He stumbled, crashing into a control panel. Sparks flew, and the room filled with the acrid smell of burning electronics. "Everyone, get out!" Evelyn shouted over the din. "This place is coming down." The hybrids fought their way to the exit, the ground shaking beneath their feet. Evelyn made sure everyone was out before following. As they burst into the night air, the laboratory exploded behind them, flames licking the sky. Breathing heavily, they regrouped a safe distance away. The glow of the fire reflected in their eyes, a symbol of their hard-won victory. "We did it," Evelyn said, her voice filled with a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "We stopped him." Jordan nodded, his panther eyes gleaming with pride. "What's next?" Evelyn looked at her team, feeling a deep sense of unity. "We rebuild. We find a way to reverse the serum's effects, and we ensure that nothing like this ever happens again." As the night settled around them, Evelyn felt a sense of hope. They had faced immense danger and emerged victorious. Together, they would build a future free from fear and tyranny. And in that moment, she knew they had become more than a team. They were a family, bound by their shared struggle and their unwavering resolve. The night was still young as Evelyn and her team gathered outside Victor's main laboratory. The building loomed against the dark sky, a fortress of steel and concrete. Evelyn's heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. This was it, their final stand. Jordan and Alex led the distraction team once more, setting off small explosives at strategic points around the perimeter. The blast shattered the night's silence, drawing guards away from their posts. Evelyn signaled her team, and they moved swiftly, slipping through the now unguarded gates. They navigated the labyrinth of corridors, their movements synchronized and silent. The interior was a high-tech marvel, filled with advanced equipment and glowing vats of the new serum. Evelyn's stomach churned at the sight. This was where Victor planned to create his army. "We need to find the central lab," she whispered, guiding her team deeper into the facility. They encountered several guards, but Evelyn's training and the hybrid's abilities gave them the upper hand. Mark placed explosives at key points, ensuring that when the time came, the lab would be completely destroyed. As they reached the central lab, they were met with a formidable sight. The room was filled with large vats of the serum, and in the center stood Victor, flanked by his most loyal hybrids. His eyes gleamed with triumph. "Welcome, Evelyn," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "I've been expecting you." Evelyn stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "This ends now, Victor. You've caused enough harm." Victor laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You're too late. My new serum is almost ready. With it, I'll create an army of hybrids loyal only to me." The loyal hybrids moved to attack, but Evelyn's team was prepared. Jordan leaped forward, his panther reflexes making him a blur of motion as he engaged the first hybrid. Alex swooped down from above, his hawk wings allowing him to disarm another. Evelyn focused on Victor, knowing she had to take him down to end this. She moved quickly, dodging his attacks and striking back with calculated precision. Victor was strong, his hybrid enhancements giving him an edge, but Evelyn's determination fueled her. The room erupted into chaos. Explosions from Mark's devices rocked the building, sending shards of glass and metal flying. The hybrids fought fiercely, their animalistic abilities turning the lab into a battleground. Evelyn managed to land a blow on Victor, knocking him back into one of the vats. The serum spilled out, its glow casting an eerie light on the scene. Victor scrambled to his feet, his eyes wild with fury. "You think you've won?" he snarled. "This is only the beginning." Evelyn saw her chance. She grabbed a nearby pipe and swung it with all her strength, hitting Victor squarely in the chest. He stumbled, crashing into a control panel. Sparks flew, and the room filled with the acrid smell of burning electronics. "Everyone, get out!" Evelyn shouted over the din. "This place is coming down." The hybrids fought their way to the exit, the ground shaking beneath their feet. Evelyn made sure everyone was out before following. As they burst into the night air, the laboratory exploded behind them, flames licking the sky. Breathing heavily, they regrouped a safe distance away. The glow of the fire reflected in their eyes, a symbol of their hard-won victory. "We did it," Evelyn said, her voice filled with a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "We stopped him." Jordan nodded, his panther eyes gleaming with pride. "What's next?" Evelyn looked at her team, feeling a deep sense of unity. "We rebuild. We find a way to reverse the serum's effects, and we ensure that nothing like this ever happens again." As the night settled around them, Evelyn felt a sense of hope. They had faced immense danger and emerged victorious. Together, they would build a future free from fear and tyranny. And in that moment, she knew they had become more than a team. They were a family, bound by their shared struggle and their unwavering resolve. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. They had taken down Victor, but there would be others like him. Evelyn knew they had to stay vigilant, to protect each other and the city they loved. They had the strength, the unity, and the determination to face whatever came next. And as they stood together, watching the flames die down, they knew they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 10. A New Dawn. The morning sun rose slowly over NeoGenesis, casting a golden hue over the city that had seen so much turmoil. Evelyn stood at the edge of the abandoned factory, watching as the first light of day chased away the remnants of darkness. Her heart was heavy with the memories of the battle, but she was filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Inside, the hybrids were already awake, discussing their next steps. They had emerged from the conflict stronger and more united, but the scars of the past were still fresh. Evelyn joined them, her presence bringing a sense of calm and focus. "We've taken a significant step forward," she began, her voice steady. "But our work is far from over. Victor may be gone, but his legacy remains. We need to find a way to reverse the serum's effects and ensure that no one else can follow in his footsteps." Mark nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I've been analyzing the data we gathered from the lab. There are some promising leads, but it's going to take time and resources. Jordan, ever the strategist, added, "We also need to secure a safe location for our continued work. This factory has served us well, but it's not a long-term solution." Evelyn agreed. "We'll start by relocating to a more secure facility. I have a contact in the outskirts of the city who might be able to help us. Once we're settled, we can focus on finding a cure." The hybrids busied themselves with packing up their supplies and equipment. Despite the challenges ahead, there was an air of optimism. They had faced immense danger and emerged victorious, and that victory had forged a strong bond among them. As they prepared to leave, Evelyn took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. They were no longer just a group of individuals thrown together by circumstance. They were a family, united by their shared struggle and their hope for a better future. The journey to their new location was uneventful. The early morning streets of NeoGenesis quiet as they made their way through the city. Evelyn led the way, her thoughts focused on the road ahead. The contact she had mentioned, Dr. Samuels, was an old colleague who had retired from active research but still maintained a well-equipped lab in a remote part of the city. When they arrived, Dr. Samuels greeted them warmly. He was a tall, gray-haired man with a kind smile and a keen intellect. "Evelyn, it's good to see you. I've heard about your work. Please come in. You and your team are welcome here." The lab was a perfect sanctuary, isolated, secure, and fully equipped. As they settled in, Evelyn felt a sense of relief. Here, they could continue their work without fear of discovery. Days turned into weeks as they dove into their research. The lab buzzed with activity, each hybrid contributing their unique skills and abilities. Evelyn and Mark led the efforts, their combined expertise driving them closer to a breakthrough. One afternoon, as Evelyn was reviewing some test results, Jordan approached her. "Evelyn, I've been thinking. We've been on the defensive for so long, but maybe it's time we went on the offensive. There are still remnants of Victor's organization out there. If we can take them down, we'll be safer in the long run." Evelyn considered his words. "You're right. We can't just sit back and wait for them to come to us. We need to be proactive." They devised a plan to locate and dismantle the remaining cells of Victor's network. Using the intel they had gathered, they identified several key targets. Jordan and a small team of hybrids would lead the missions, while Evelyn and Mark continued their research. The first mission was a resounding success. Jordan's team infiltrated a warehouse used by Victor's men, capturing valuable equipment and data. The hybrids' unique abilities gave them an edge, and their coordinated efforts ensured minimal risk. With each successful mission, they grew more confident. They dismantled labs, intercepted shipments, and disrupted operations. NeoGenesis began to feel safer, the shadow of Victor's influence gradually lifting. Back at the lab, Evelyn and Mark made significant progress. They developed a prototype for a serum that could potentially reverse the effects of Victor's formula. The first trials showed promise, and the team's morale soared. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Evelyn gathered the hybrids. "We've come a long way," she said, her voice filled with pride. "We've faced incredible challenges, but we've overcome them together. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone who has been affected by Victor's actions." Jordan stepped forward, his panther eyes shining with determination. "We're ready for whatever comes next. We'll protect the city and ensure that no one else suffers like we did." Evelyn smiled, feeling a deep sense of unity and resolve. "Together, we can achieve anything. Let's continue our work, and let's build a future we can all be proud of." As the night deepened, the hybrids found solace in their unity. They were more than just survivors. They were a family, bound by their shared struggle and their unwavering hope. And together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that they had the strength and determination to overcome them. The early morning air was crisp and cold as Evelyn and her team prepared for their final mission. Their new sanctuary had become a hive of activity, the hybrids working tirelessly to dismantle the last remnants of Victor's network. The lab buzzed with a mix of anticipation and tension, everyone acutely aware of the stakes. Evelyn stood at the center of the lab, reviewing the final details of their plan. "This is it," she said, her voice steady. We've made incredible progress, but we need to strike a decisive blow. We've identified the last stronghold of Victor's followers. If we take it down, we can finally end this. Jordan, ever the strategist, laid out the map of their target. It's a fortified compound on the outskirts of the city. Security is tight, but we've pinpointed the weak spots. We'll divide into 3 teams. One to breach the perimeter, one to disable their defenses, and one to infiltrate and gather intel. Mark adjusted his glasses, his expression serious. We've also refined the prototype serum. It's ready for field testing. If we can get close enough, we might be able to neutralize their enhanced abilities. Evelyn nodded, feeling a surge of determination. Let's move out. Stay focused, stay together, and we'll get through this. The teams moved through the city under the cover of darkness, their steps silent and purposeful. As they approached the compound, the tension grew palpable. The compound was a sprawling complex, its high walls and armed guards a daunting sight. Evelyn's heart raced, but she forced herself to focus. Jordan's team moved first, slipping through the shadows to breach the perimeter. Small explosions and bursts of gunfire signaled the start of the assault. Evelyn's team followed, using the chaos to their advantage. They moved quickly, disabling security systems and taking out guards with precise strikes. Evelyn led her team towards the central building, where they believed the command center was located. The corridors were dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of sweat and metal. They encountered resistance, but the hybrid's abilities gave them an edge. Alex used his hawk wings to swoop down from above, disarming enemies before they could react. Jordan's panther reflexes allowed him to move with lightning speed, incapacitating guards with a single blow. As they reached the central command room, they found it heavily guarded. Evelyn signaled for silence, then motioned for Mark to prepare the prototype serum. They had one shot at this. Mark loaded the serum into a series of syringes, and the team moved into position. Now, Evelyn shouted, bursting into the room. The guards turned, weapons raised, but the hybrids were faster. Alex flew overhead, dropping down to disarm the guards. Jordan tackled 2 guards, his strength sending them crashing into the walls. Evelyn moved with purpose, injecting the serum into the closest enemies. They convulsed briefly before collapsing, their enhancements neutralized. Victor's followers fought fiercely, but the hybrids' unity and strategy prevailed. Evelyn could see the fear in their eyes as their defenses crumbled. They had relied on Victor's enhancements, and without them, they were vulnerable. As the last of the guards fell, Evelyn and her team secured the command center. They quickly began downloading data and collecting evidence. Evelyn's eyes scanned the room, taking in the chaotic scene. They had done it. The stronghold was theirs. Mark worked furiously at a terminal, extracting files and decrypting data. "This is it," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "We've got everything we need to dismantle the rest of Victor's network." Evelyn's heart swelled with pride. They had faced insurmountable odds and emerged victorious. "Let's finish this," she said. "We need to make sure no one can ever follow in Victor's footsteps." As they gathered the last of the data, an explosion rocked the building. Evelyn's head snapped up, eyes wide with alarm. "What was that?" Jordan, panting from the exertion, replied, "Sounds like reinforcements. We need to get out of here now." Evelyn nodded. "Fall back to the extraction point. Move." The team moved swiftly through the corridors, the sounds of battle growing louder. They fought their way through the compound, their determination unwavering. As they reached the perimeter, they saw the extraction vehicle waiting for them, the engine running. "Hurry!" Evelyn shouted, helping her team into the vehicle. As the last of the hybrids climbed aboard, Evelyn took one final look at the compound. They had struck a decisive blow, but the fight was not yet over. As they sped away from the compound, Evelyn felt a mix of exhaustion and triumph. They had dismantled Victor's network, but the journey ahead would be challenging. They had to rebuild, to heal, and to find a way to reverse the serum's effects. Evelyn looked at her team, their faces marked with weariness but also with hope. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with pride. We've taken a huge step forward, but our work isn't done. We'll keep fighting, keep pushing, and we'll build a future free from fear." Jordan nodded, his panther eyes shining with determination. "We're ready for whatever comes next." As the city lights faded into the distance, Evelyn felt a sense of unity and resolve. They had faced incredible challenges and emerged victorious. Together, they would face whatever came next, knowing they had the strength and determination to overcome any obstacle. The dawn of a new day brought hope and promise. They had taken down Victor's network, but their journey was far from over. Evelyn knew they would continue to fight, to protect each other, and to build a future they could all be proud of. The first light of dawn found the hybrids and Evelyn gathered in their new sanctuary. The air was still and crisp, a stark contrast to the chaos they had left behind. They stood in a circle, the camaraderie and unity among them palpable. The exhaustion from their recent battles was etched on their faces, but so was a fierce determination. Evelyn stepped forward, her gaze steady and filled with resolve. "We've dismantled Victor's network and taken significant steps toward ensuring the safety of NeoGenesis. But our work is far from over. We must focus on reversing the serum's effects and rebuilding our lives." Mark adjusted his glasses, nodding. "I've been analyzing the data we retrieved from the compound. There are some promising leads that could help us develop a permanent cure. It's going to take time and a lot of resources, but I believe we can do it." Jordan, his panther eyes glinting with determination, added, "We also need to stay vigilant. Victor's influence might be gone, but there could still be remnants of his followers out there. We can't afford to let our guard down." Evelyn agreed. "We'll divide our efforts. Mark and I will focus on the research. Jordan, I want you to lead the security team and ensure our perimeter is secure. Alex, you and your team will gather resources and keep an eye out for any threats." The hybrids nodded, their resolve unwavering. They had faced incredible challenges and emerged stronger for it. Now, they would turn their focus to building a better future. As days turned into weeks, the lab buzzed with activity. Evelyn and Mark worked tirelessly on the serum, their combined expertise driving them closer to a breakthrough. The lab was filled with the hum of machines and the quiet conversations of hybrids discussing their progress. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, Evelyn and Mark stood in the lab, reviewing their latest results. "We're close, Evelyn," Mark said, his voice filled with excitement. "The latest trials show significant promise. We might have found the key to reversing the serum's effects." Evelyn felt a surge of hope. "Let's run one more test to be sure. If this works, we can start administering it to the hybrids and see if we can restore them to their original forms." The test was a success. The serum showed a remarkable ability to neutralize the effects of Victor's formula. Evelyn and Mark prepared to administer the first dose to one of the hybrids, a young woman named Leah who had been transformed early on. "Leah, are you ready?" Evelyn asked gently, holding the syringe. Leah nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and hope. "I trust you, Evelyn. Let's do this." Evelyn administered the serum, and they waited anxiously for the results. Minutes felt like hours, but slowly, Leah's features began to change. Her fur receded, her claws retracted, and her eyes returned to their original color. "It's working," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. Leah looked at her hands, tears of joy streaming down her face. I'm me again." The lab erupted in cheers. Evelyn felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They had done it. They had found a way to reverse the serum's effects. Over the next few weeks, they administered the serum to the other hybrids. Each transformation back to their original form was a victory, a step towards healing and redemption. The lab became a place of hope and renewal, filled with the sounds of laughter and celebration. One afternoon, as they gathered in the common area, Jordan addressed the group. "We've come a long way. We've faced incredible challenges and overcome them together. But our journey isn't over. We need to ensure that no one else ever suffers like we did." Evelyn nodded. "We'll continue to protect this city, to rebuild our lives, and to make sure that Victor's legacy is nothing more than a distant memory. We've proven that together, we can achieve anything. As the sun set over NeoGenesis, casting a warm glow over the city, the hybrids and Evelyn stood together, united by their shared struggle and their unwavering hope for the future. They had faced darkness and emerged into the light, stronger and more determined than ever. Evelyn looked at her team, her heart swelling with pride. We did it. We've reclaimed our lives and our future, and we'll continue to protect this city and each other, no matter what challenges lie ahead. The dawn of a new day brought with it the promise of a brighter future. Together, they would rebuild and create a world free from fear and tyranny. They were more than just survivors. They were a family, bound by their shared journey and their commitment to a better tomorrow. And as they stood together, watching the sun rise over NeoGenesis, they knew they were ready to face whatever came next. Did you find the golden star in the video? If you did, leave a comment with the time you saw it to be mentioned in our next video. Thanks for spending a moment of your day with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps a lot. If you don't, well, I'll still love you. Thanks for stopping by.